What is up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Assemble Performance Podcast. I'm your host, Justin Jones. Whether I'm hitting the trails, training for an ultramarathon, or pushing my limits in the gym strength training, I've always been fascinated by what drives us to perform at our best. This podcast is for everyone, from the serious endurance, strength, or hybrid athlete to the outdoor enthusiast who wants to live life to the fullest. I believe that peak performance is an assembly of physical training, mental fortitude, emotional health, and social support. Whether you're training for a sport or viewing life itself as the ultimate athletic event, join me in redefining limits and living a life full of challenges and adventure. Let's get into today's podcast. What's up, guys? Got another episode of the podcast. We've got Ariana Scalfo here today. She is very humble and did not give me anything to introduce her with, other than, I don't know, I do stuff. So I do have an introduction that I came up with. I'm pretty proud of it.
Dang
So
it.
Ariana is a coach, and she's the director of coaching at Complete Human Performance. So if you guys message the Complete Human Performance Instagram, she is probably the one replying. She trains in powerlifting, trail running, and various other hybrid goals. And she still trains pretty hard despite being over 8 months pregnant at this point. So crushing it over there. A little background, I followed Ariana and CHP for a while. I don't know who I followed first. You know, you follow one coach and then every other coach pops up and coaching companies. So followed them for a while. And then my first actual time talking with Ariana was when I reached out to CHP for some nutrition coaching. And that went super well. Ariana is a super down to earth, very authentic person. And that's not just me. A lot of other people I've talked to that have worked with you in different capacities say the same thing. So very awesome person to talk to and work with. So yeah, without further ado, Ariana, how you doing?
I'm good. Thank you. That was a very kind and sweet introduction. I greatly appreciate it. Yeah, and working with Justin is also a dream because, like, the dude asks the best questions and always gives everything 100%. So I will say, working with you was probably only that smooth because you're a you as person. But no, I'm just kidding. You're awesome. But I'm
Appreciate
just
it.
stoked to see everything that you've done. I mean, you started coaching while we were working together, right? Which is when your wife was pregnant.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've been through so many changes together.
It's wild. It's
Pretty
cool to
cool
see.
to yeah, absolutely.
Um,
It's cool.
yeah, I mean, you do. Also, Ariana has a ton of animals. Ariana does a little bit of everything. So,
Not ruined.
do you want to go into a little more detail about like what you do now with CHP and just in life in general?
Sure. So I guess to start the way I got started with CHP was like way back in 2017. Alex put up this call for what he called like special projects, which really is actually just his premier coaching now, but this was sort of the start of it. And he was basically like, look, I'm opening up this coaching program to like 6 people. But if you sign up, you have to be okay with, like, you're gonna tell me your goals and I'll get you there, but you have to be okay with doing whatever I program. And so my coworkers at the time, I was working for a nutrition company, they bullied me into it. And at the time I didn't run. I didn't think I could run. Um, I was still I wasn't very strong. I mean, I was strong enough, but I was still very much limited by my genetic disorder and thought I would be a lot more limited by it at the time that I signed up with Alex. I think I even apologized to him in my sign up. I was just kind of like, hey, like, I don't know what I can do. I might not be able to run. Obviously, Alex being Alex was like, what? Like, what kind of excuse is that? Let's go get you running. So, long story short, I think 4 years later, I was running up mountains and, lifting double what I had when I started working with him, way healthier. And so I started coaching for the company after taking a bunch of courses and just getting really, really involved in the science of training because I'd done nutrition for 6 years at that point, and it was really satisfying. I was working with a lot of really cool athletes. I was working with a lot of endurance athletes, especially. Um, There's just a part of me that really wanted to coach people too, or just be more involved in kind of what Alex was doing because the benefit it had on my life. So I started coaching for CHP, and I noticed that there was just kind of this empty space where someone could be like pulling things together and like making the Instagram and everyone was doing their own thing, but like there was this lack of sort of team cohesion at the time. So I remember I told Alex, I was like, hey, I'm gonna start doing this. I'm just gonna you don't have to pay me, but just know like I'm gonna start taking care of things. I'm gonna start doing things. And then I guess I got my own email and then I got the Instagram and then I got the podcast. I just slowly started taking everything. But it was mostly just because like, and I feel like anyone who's been in the industry for long enough and has been coaching long enough, you kind of lose touch with what people actually love about you or the impact that you're having on people. And I think that was the one thing that I really wanted to bring back and bring back to the forefront for all of the coaches that have been coaching at CHP for so long and have been so incredible. You know, Anthony, Alec, Johnny, Alex, even like being able to create an environment where we have more of a community and we focus in on the things that they're actually giving to people that are really helping. I think that's been huge, not only for the company, but also for the coaches, is just to be reconnected with what they're appreciated for. I think, I think that's really important. So that was the biggest thing I wanted to do. But of course, in doing that, now I also handle like all the back end stuff. So like the template migration, we're working on a new home for our templates, all of the coaching back end stuff. Like if you email me and you want to find a coach, I'm the person you're going to talk to, and I'll help you find a coach that's right for you. I basically do everything. But it's really satisfying because I get to be right in the heart of the business and I get to meet people like Justin and I get to communicate with all of our clients, run things like the Crucible, and I really get to know our community, which has been a blessing for me. It's been really awesome. And I think that's centered my own training and my own life now because Alex and I live on a farm, basically. We have 2 horses, we have 3 goats, a bunch of chicken and geese, 2 dogs, 2 cats. And the thing that I love the most about it is that it keeps you really humble. I'm sure that children do the same thing, but like you can't you can do something really cool. You can PR something, and then you come home and your horse still has to have their poop shoveled, and they still are screaming at you for food, and like you still have to collect the like. There's just it's really grounding, and it keeps you really humble and really focused on the present. You can't get sucked into I don't know. It's really easy when you're a really driven, focused athlete to get really, really tightly attached to your goals and like your performance and how that particular day went. And when there's always this like constant reminder that life's going to go on, whether you did your PR or not. I don't know. It's been really, really cool. So we've got animals around the company, and then I'm 8 months pregnant. So I'm sure I'll have a very different story for you in like 1 month. But for right now, I am just a very fancy vehicle for my son. It's just
Oh man,
figuring out how to train with that. But yeah, that's kind of how I got into the role that I'm in CHP. It was very much so self-made. Give me
man,
that.
yeah, just kind of worked your way in.
Yeah.
Gave me a ton there to ton of stuff I want to talk about. But you
Sorry.
really do fill that role super well with connecting with people. I think that's what stood out to me the most, and I want to talk about that maybe in a little bit about you have that soft skills of coaching down really well, connecting with people. So we can talk about it in a minute, but first I wanted to maybe give some background on your fitness journey because
Mhm.
I think it's super inspiring. I saw a post, I don't know how long you made it, probably a while ago, but it's stuck in my head. You said, I looked at people with like my conditions and saw that they were in wheelchairs and didn't want to be that way. And
Yeah.
that was like a super inspiring statement. So could you maybe go in more depth? I actually didn't know you were nutrition coached before you coached, fitness. So I'd love to hear more about that too.
Yeah. Thank you. So I have a condition called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is a connective tissue disorder. There's like 13 subtypes, and a lot of the subtypes are actually much more severe than the kind that I have. There's a vascular type, for example, which only affects the connective tissue or extra affects the connective tissues in things like veins, arteries, and the heart. That actually, most people that have that have a lifespan of about 40 years. So there's different versions. The one that I have is just called hypermobility type. It's kind of like the big bucket. And basically, it affects all of my connective tissue, anything that involves collagen. So even like my soft palate, my gums, my veins, my arteries. So I had difficulty with things like blood pressure regulation when I stand up because my veins are lax. Just lots of little weird things. Lots of gastrointestinal issues, things like GERD. Just a very interesting disorder. The more I learn about it, and because it affects different people different ways, it's not a progressive disease necessarily. But the longer that you live with weak tissue, especially if it's not a tissue that can self repair very well, especially if you have an issue with actually building the structures. So it's like I could take collagen, but it won't make a difference because my body doesn't know how to put it together. So like you do end up with people who end up with feeding tubes, people who end up wheelchair bound due to just a ton of injuries, surgeries, failed surgeries. A lot of people live with chronic pain because we know that, joint pain can be pretty life altering. But when you have an unstable joint, and if you're constantly subluxing, then there's constant movement inside the joint capsule. It can be incredibly painful and incredibly exhausting. There are also things like sleep issues. Usually comes with this condition called dysautonomia, which is like a dysfunction of the autonomic nervous system. So things like heart rate tachycardia, postural static tachycardia syndrome, POTS, digestive issues like the speed of digestion being like wrong, like too fast or too slow, issues sweating. So it's like a very strange disorder. And it comes in all different levels of severity. But the one thing that I noticed when I started researching it early on, when I was first diagnosed, because I was 14 and my shoulder kept dislocating. And when I went to the physical therapist, actually, he just there's a test that they do that they just test the levels of your hypermobility system wide. And I think I was like 40% more flexible than the average person in like all of my joints. And he just went, "Oh, you're hypermobile. You probably have EDS." And then that was it. Like no doctor kind of took that and ran with it. So for a while, I was sitting with this diagnosis and doing what research I could. I was 14, so that was like early 2000s. Internet was there, but it's not what it is now. And the instructions I was given, and instructions a lot of people with this disease are given, I guess it's syndrome, not disease, but is just to do no high impact exercise and to stay away from heavy weights. So I was warned not to lift more than a gallon of milk, and I was warned to stop any and all impact activities. So I was told like you should just swim. So for me, going from I had done dance for 13 years, I'd done martial arts, I was really active, to be told that I had to stop doing everything but with no insight, no one going, okay, you're really fragile right now. I had just grown, I think 3 inches in like a year. So I went from like 5'5" to 5'8", which is my current height at 14. So I'm sure there was just all this stretching, muscle weakness, poor proprioception because I had just grown so quickly. There are probably a lot of things going on systemically that made me more prone to injury at the time. But unfortunately, one of the things that makes this whole disorder worse is deconditioning. And one of the things that makes my cardiovascular symptoms worse is deconditioning. So when I stopped everything, I just got super, super sick. I couldn't run at all. And I just started getting panic attacks, depression, just everything you could think of. And I just thought my life was over. I didn't know, you just got this doctor's voice ringing in your head. Don't. Just don't. But I'm also stubborn and I don't listen to instructions very well. So I kept trying and I did have some success in short bursts, but then I would inevitably get injured because I would go too hard or try too much, um, or choose the wrong movement pattern, or I was training myself. I was being an idiot sometimes. And then I would inevitably decondition. And then I would have to start all over. And after that process, 4 or 5 times, it gets really tempting to give up. It really does. I think I'm super fortunate, even though I could make that sound, dramatic and sad, but like I think I'm actually really fortunate that at 14, I was told to take it easy because I know a lot of women who are diagnosed very late in life, like after children. And it's usually after they've had a hip surgery or a knee surgery or a shoulder surgery or a hip reconstruction or a back fusion. Like they've already had multiple surgeries at that point without the knowledge of what was actually going on, which is really unfortunate because then that limits them going forward. And they have kids and they have all this other stuff that complicates things. I think I'm super fortunate that I was diagnosed early, even though it was very frustrating, but it was still super frustrating.
Yeah, that has to be
So,
super frustrating. I know that
yeah,
since I've gotten married, and especially now since having a kid, I've gotten so much more frustrated when even Hannah has to go in for stuff because I feel like it's hard in general to find a good doctor that will listen to you, but especially I feel like women have a really hard time with that. Um, and I've like, done a ton of research before she'll go in for the most simple thing just to make sure that she's like empowered to go in. So it must
yeah,
have been so hard, especially as a 14-year-old dealing with that and not a ton of direction from the doctors.
yeah. I was diagnosed with stress. Like I went all the way to the children's hospital, DuPont. They ran a bunch of tests and they sent me home and said I was stressed out. That was it. And then I was experiencing emotional distress, and I may have been making up my symptoms for attention. That was their diagnosis. Yeah.
That's so
That's like,
frustrating. The
yeah, and
rage in me right now hearing that.
it's it's insane because it was like a shot to the heart as a kid. You think like, okay, I'm gonna go all the way to this crazy good hospital. I'm getting my blood taken. I'm getting all these tests done. I'm gonna get looked at. Someone's gonna give a shit. And I knew halfway through his like little interview when I started to cry that he wasn't actually listening. Like I just knew and I just gave up because I was like, nothing I say is gonna get to this guy. So yes, it is incredibly difficult. It happens to men and women, but I think, there are so many things that women experience regularly that could be written off or like things could be attributed to that we find ourselves in situations where we're being either medically gaslit or medically dismissed, I think, when there's something much more serious going on. Which again, going into like I started CrossFit and I worked with actually one of our coaches, Kenny Barber. He was my first ever coach, and he was just awesome. He used to call me Bambi because I would work with just the 35-pound bar. And I did that for a year just out of his garage. I didn't take group classes. I just worked with him personally. And then I started graduating slowly out. But it was still like a very upward battle because I still didn't really understand my body. I didn't really understand the cardiovascular implications of my disease. So it wasn't until I started running and doing a lot of zone two work that I started to feel the benefits of, and for people that have POTS, they might be familiar with this. There's the TROP protocol. There's a bunch of different cardiovascular protocols that they put people on because with better cardiovascular systemic strength, the better your body is able to manage things like changes in blood pressure. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I
So,
think a lot of people don't. They get
yeah.
like when you're talking, I'm thinking, a lot of people might think I have this, so I'm fragile and I can't do
Mm,
anything, which is exactly
yeah.
what the doctor told you to do. How
100%.
long?
And
How
they
I was
were
gonna say, how long did you live like that before you started to like get into CrossFit and learn these different things?
a decade.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was really, really cool to realize that little things like obviously the stronger I got, the less pain I was in because the tightness of my muscles and my muscle tonicity. If you look at Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, one of the biggest recommendations is physical therapy. the stronger that you are, the more likely it is that it'll hold your joints in place. The more practiced you are at moving, a lot of movement is in joint proprioception. So if you don't know where your end range of motion is, you're more likely to hyperextend. So let's say you're doing a lot of training, you're stronger, you're tightening your muscles. You're also learning where that end range of motion is. So you're going to use that excessive range less. PT is like one of the first interventions. It made my pain so much better. And then doing cardio on top of that when I started working with Alex made me more able to, like, things like what I thought my chronic fatigue was. It was actually just really badly uncontrolled POTS. That started to get better. So I was able to do more work. So I was able to do more stuff. So it kind of just compounds. And I think from there, I just kind of was like, okay, well, what can I do? Like, what, how far can I go? What can I do? Like, how strong can I get? How far can I run? Um, and it's just been really cool. It's really cool because the perspective it gives you on like the resilience of the human system and the human body and what adaptations, even the most broken, I mean, I'm not the most broken body at all by any means, but I could come up with a lot of reasons why my body is incapable, but instead it's done nothing but show me that it is capable. I just have to be really smart.
That's awesome. I love that message. Um, you also deal with, though, even though you've gone through this journey, you still though deal with a lot of setbacks, right? I think last year, especially, you had a lot of setbacks. How do you deal with that? Because a lot of people, they'd reach this goal and they're like, I overcame this, and then they have a setback, and that's just emotionally just super defeating.
It always is super defeating. I gotta be honest. I have about one major setback a year of varying degrees. So either it's an injury, an illness flare. So like maybe I'll get a virus or get sick, I'll decondition, or it'll, like when I got COVID and got myocarditis and got asthma, I stopped being able to train regularly, and it just like it throws the rest of my system out of whack. I'm basically like walking at a razor's edge at all times. So every year there's something, and I've got to be honest. The first year I was doing pretty well. I was running regularly, and then something happened, and I got this flare, and I stopped being able to use my hands. I got like carpal tunnel really bad, and I like physically couldn't use my hands anymore. And that's actually why I use deadlift hooks now. But I stopped being able to use my hands, and then my hips got really bad, and I couldn't like walk up the steps to my apartment. And I wanted to give up. Like you get really catastrophic. It's so easy to catastrophize and to take it and be like, oh my God, this is going to be the rest of my life. Everything's over. I failed. I've messed up. This is what my body is like. Not the fit person. I'm just fighting this. I'm going to be fighting this forever. This is going to be exhaust. Like I called the toilet bowl for the flush starts, and you keep flushing, and it's really hard to pull yourself out of it. I do have to give Alex a lot of credit. I have learned a lot of my soft skills and a lot of my coaching skills from being coached by him and working with him, because, I would message him when I would, again, be unable to execute my training, or I would do what I thought was a terrible job. And he would just be like, who do you want to be? Who do you think you are? Like, stop talking to me about these things that you're afraid of. Who do you want to be? Who do you think you are? What would that person do right now? And just focusing on that got me out of probably every single flare I've ever had. Because even if it's next to nothing, the next to nothing is still doing more for me than nothing. But I can't really say that I've got better at dealing with setbacks. They're always gonna be just so freaking frustrating. And it's been really tough not viewing pregnancy as one as well, which has been interesting. That I've been saying this is probably the first time I've had a quote unquote setback that gives me a prize at the end. Normally it's just like it's just a period of shit and then things get better. But this is the first time I'm gonna get like a prize. So that's how I've been thinking about it. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
You are still training a lot too, even with people that don't have anything going on except for pregnancy. You've been crushing it from what I've seen.
Thank you. I have definitely slowed down in the last month. I'm incredibly heat sensitive and it's been like almost 100. It's actually only 50 something today or 60, which is great, but it's been almost 100 every day here. So
In
I haven't been
October,
able to like,
for reference.
yeah, it's gross. I haven't
Yeah.
been able to like hike or do much. So I'm excited that it's cooling off because I want to get back out there. But I will say that spending most of my life figuring out how to do what I can is really helpful during pregnancy because that changes daily.
Yeah, I remember with Hannah, it was that way. I
Yeah.
think it's super interesting to note that even as a coach, like you work with other people and you're not emotionally involved in their training. So it's easy for somebody to come to you and be like, oh, I've got all this going on. And as a coach, you can be like, well, that's fine. That makes sense. But then when you deal with it yourself, everybody, you get in that like toilet bowl that you said.
Mhm.
I do it all the time emotionally. It's like, you know better, but it's so hard to, what is this saying? It's so hard to like see the fishbowl from inside of it or something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's perfect. I always I always tell people, especially people that I work with that are coaches or people that I know that are coaches, I'm like, all those tricks that you use on your clients, you're not above them. Like, if you need to trick yourself for a solid 4 months to get out of this, like, go trick yourself. It doesn't like I don't care. I do it all the time. So I'm team just I don't know. Don't think so highly of yourself and just use the same shit you use on your
Right. I think it's helpful too for people that we coach to know that everybody deals with it and it's not just them and they're not, broken because they're dealing with some setback.
Yeah, that's been, I think, the weirdest thing for me is people who meet me now who don't know where I came from or what I've done and what I've been through. They'll say things like, well, you wouldn't understand, or like, you wouldn't get it, or they won't tell me that they're struggling with something. So a lot of my coaching is like begging people to just tell me what's going on. And I'm always like very open and upfront with it because I want people to understand that I'm never judging ever. And when you're in something and you're dealing with it, there can be there can be a lot of emotion and there can even be symptoms of even things that are similar to like CPTSD when you experience a setback that you've experienced before. There's just very strong mental ties between an action or an experience and then a very negative outcome. And it's really hard to untie that. Um, so I find that whether you're working with a person that's been struggling with their body weight their whole life, or is struggling with a back injury or a shoulder injury or something like that, where it's kind of chronic, letting them know that it's okay to express that they're in the toilet bowl can be really helpful as a coach because then you're like, oh, okay, we got to get you out of the toilet bowl. That's why none of this is going well. It's not the training, it's just that you hate it. Like, cool.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you mentioned you coached nutrition first before you coached, regular physical coaching. When did you get into nutrition coaching? Were you still kind of in the thick of it with EDS or were you past that at that point?
So, right around the time that I started CrossFitting, because that was actually my mom started doing CrossFit with Kenny, and she was like, "Look, like, I really like him. I think you'll be safe with him. Like, I think if you do CrossFit with him, he'll take really good care of you, and he'll coach you out of his garage." So I started doing that, and then my mom also was doing some Freya. Sorry, my dog is. I want get out of there. She's going
Mine
up.
does the same thing. You have a Malinois, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, so we're doing with Kenny, um, sort of a macros based weight loss program. And I was dealing with a lot of weight gain. I was probably like 170 pounds at the time, which for context, I'm 170 pounds when I got pregnant. So like very different body composition then. And I started working with Mike Dula at Stronger You with Kenny and my mom as a client. And I just really liked macros and I really liked the structure. So he brought me on as one of his first 20 coaches, which is really cool. And then I worked for him for almost 6 years. So um, I was sort of their administrative manager, operations manager for a while coaching. Then I shifted into coaching 100%. And I was basically like their endurance person. where they would give the triathletes too and the ultramarathoners too and whatever, which is just really, really cool. And Mike Dola was actually the person who introduced me to Alex. So he was the one that pressured and pushed me into signing up with Alex. So hi, friend. So yeah, I did nutrition coaching as I was coming out of my situation, which was also really cool because I was nutrition coaching while figuring out how to feed myself for endurance activity, while figuring out how to put on muscle mass but not gain body fat. Like I was in nutrition and learning all these things and becoming a better coach while also figuring out how to hybrid. So it's just really cool to like take the things that I would learn and like bring them to my clients, even if they were quote unquote Gen Pop and figure them out with people. And that was just, it was just a really fun experience. And then yeah, just from there, shifting 100% into the CHP thing has just been so rewarding because, now instead of getting the occasional crazy ultra runner that signs up to lose weight, I'm getting a crazy guy who's ultra running, lifting weights, and wants to gain muscle. And I'm like, I really like this. This is crazy. Let's do it. So yeah, that's just been really, really cool. But doing that, if you talked about my soft skills, 100%, 6 years nutrition coaching. That will teach you everything you have to know about people.
Yeah, nutrition can be such an emotionally charged. I think we had a conversation a while ago about nutrition behavior change, and there's a fine line between behavior change and actual therapy. So
Yeah. Yeah. I can't tell you how many clients where I was like, maybe you should consider a therapist because I don't think this is food. And by I don't know how many clients, I mean probably 50%. But it's interesting how many times you're working with a person and you're like, you're using food as a tool to cope with something or to deal with something, whether it's by tightly controlling it or being out of control of it. Food is just a very easy to track way of noticing dysregulation in your life. Like it's just easy to see. It's easy to see when it's in food. It's difficult to see in everything else, but yeah, that'll teach you how to work with people real fast. As I'm
working with
sure.
endurance, yeah,
What's
yeah.
that?
I was gonna say working with endurance athletes too. I'm sure, at least personally, I get a lot of people, and they're totally underfueling for what they're trying to do.
Yeah. Number one problem I face.
Yeah, it's so opposite of like the broader nutrition issues in America. So
Yeah.
it doesn't get a lot of light sometimes, but it really is a problem sometimes.
I would argue that because so much of our nutrition I don't world maybe is geared toward people and weight loss, endurance athletes overhear things that just simply don't apply to them. Like they just don't apply. Not in any way, shape, or form, but that's all that they see and that's the only context that they're offered. So they try to fit themselves in that box and they're just doing what they know. They're just doing what they overhear. Like I hear a lot of guys, a lot of women especially, but men too, they'll say things like, I'm trying to eat clean, I'm trying to feel clean, I'm like, what do you mean? What does that even mean? Like you're so hungry that you're binging on like the cookies in your closet on Friday night. Or like, I don't care if you eat salad all day, man. Like, yeah, like let's get you eating a freaking sandwich or a burger. That might be more nutritionally dense and more useful to you. I don't know. It's really hard to sort through all the nutrition jargon out there.
Yeah, I've had a few different athletes send me studies and ask me questions, and you look at the study, and it's like for sedentary individuals, and this is a marathon runner. So yeah, it is interesting, like, for sure.
Yeah. Or like you look at the study and you're like, they did this in diabetics? Like,
Uh,
you're not diabetic. You're okay.
your whole training and nutrition and everything has kind of been thrown on its head the last 8 months, though, hasn't it? Like, I don't know about you, but Hannah had really bad nausea, and
Mhm.
so just finding anything you can eat was, an issue, especially in the mornings. How's that been for you?
I was lucky that I didn't throw up, but I was nauseous 24/7. And because I already have GERD, just the flappy in the esophagus, my reflux has just been terrible the entire time. So it's been lots of like small meals and then just whatever I wanted to eat, I would just eat. But sometimes it was like nothing. First trimester, I lost close to 10 pounds, and that was kind of scary because I was like, I think I probably should be eating at least at maintenance at this point. So it was like a lot of like soup. I was like obsessed with soup. I really wanted fruit, yogurt, and then like really crunchy vegetables. That's all I wanted. I didn't want pizza. I didn't want anything heavy. I just wanted fruit and I wanted fish and I wanted like all the light, crunchy things. So now that I'm tuned into that, I'm like, know how to manage my reflux a little bit better. It's it's been better and like I can actually have dinner now. Thank God. But yeah, figuring that out was rough. And I just kept thinking about how much my education helps me. When I'm looking at the refrigerator full of options and I'm like, okay, which one has the most protein? Okay, I'm going to go buy some Greek yogurt. Like just how easy it was. Like it was difficult for me, but it was comparatively very easy for me to take care of myself during that time. I can't imagine not knowing. Like that's going to be so hard.
Yeah. I can't imagine. Yeah, I don't even know. That would be awful.
Yeah, just guessing and like, yeah, I can't even imagine. So things are definitely better now. But now I'm like running out of space. It's like, the reflux is there for sure. But no, I would say as far as pregnancies go, my symptoms are relatively mild. I just felt really tired the whole first trimester. I just what was brain? I slept a lot. Like, but as you were saying, like every woman does, like you're gonna have anemia. You're going to have low thyroid. Like these things are going to happen and there's literally no way to stop it. So I don't know. It's just been fascinating too, to like watch the changes that my body's going through and like my blood work, um, and be like, wow, this is incredibly stressful, like on my system. This is incredibly strenuous, which I think has also helped me not feel so limited by it. Cause I'm like, no, I'm basically doing like a workout every single day. Like my heart rate is 91 right now and I'm sitting down.
Oof. Yeah. After the whole pregnancy for Hannah and then, having Logan, the first thought I had was people do this every single day. Like multiple people around the world do this every single day. And randomly
Yeah.
I'll be like, somebody's having a kid right now. Like this is
Yeah.
wild.
And like going through the first 2 weeks of having a kid and being like, just pure chaos. How was that for you? I know that affected your training a lot in the beginning. Like you had to change the times that you trained, you said?
Yeah. I think that it was easier because Hannah's worked with kids her whole life and she's a first grade teacher. So there wasn't as much of a learning curve for both of us. It was mostly for me. And she was able
Yeah.
to be like, no, this is how you do this. This is how this is done because it's second nature for her. But
Okay.
I think I told you, I was so taken aback. Like, they were like, okay, make sure he eats this much and like, bye,
Yeah.
and like, they didn't,
Bye-bye.
like, I think you were the one, somebody I know was like, they didn't come look at my house to make sure I had enough space. Like, it's harder to adopt a dog than it is to like
Yeah.
bring a kid
That
home.
blows my mind. Like you have to fill out an application to adopt a dog and like promise that you have like a closed in yard and that you don't work too much. And like no one's asked me any of.
Yeah, it
They
was.
just hand me this future grown up, this future adult, and send me home.
Yeah, there's so much at least what they gave us, it's like, hey, they're fed and they're not sick, which is important, but there's so much more to raising a kid. And it's just like, man, I'm lucky out here. I actually know a guy that's a child psychologist. So I'll ask him all the time, like questions about child development. So that's been helpful. But yeah, the
That's
first two
really
weeks
cool.
it was kind of hard because you think the first day is going to be the hardest, but really it's like the second or third day of sleep that's the hardest. And
Yeah.
so the second or third day comes and you're like, I don't know if I could do this because it's gotten progressively worse, but then it gets better. And so, and now,
I
he's a little man and it's so cute.
I know that picture from the pumpkin. I can't even deal with it. God. I was joking with Alex because, like, I've had a godson, goddaughter, and I used to I spend a lot of time with children. I've taught art to kids, but not recently and not infants. So like, I don't really have a lot of experience with babies, but Alex has delivered 2 babies. It's you're
Wait,
like, obviously not experienced with babies either, but like just little things where like, oh, I was like pulling out cloth diapers and like kind of trying to figure out how to use them. And Alex just came up and like knew how to use the cloth diaper. And I was like, are you going to be better at this than me? Like, because he's that person where like you ask him something really random, like, you know, what's the name of that coffee where the cats poop it out? And like, he'll tell you all about it. He knows the name of it. He'll be able to tell you about it, when it started, when it's imported. Like, I feel like he's doing that with baby stuff. And I don't know when he's learning it or when he learned it, but I got to catch up. Like, I'm going to have to watch some courses so that I don't look like I don't do.
he's done so much stuff that you just brushed off. Like, oh, he's delivered 2 babies.
Yeah. Like,
That's wild.
he doesn't talk about it, but like, he was EMS for years. So, like, eh, I don't know.
Yeah, the doctors at the hospital too on babies. They swaddle the baby. They do it every day, and it's perfect. And so I like washed him a few times, and then I did it, and I was like, I got it. And then immediately he broke out of it, and I was like, I'm horrible.
It's true though. It's like, it's a practice and like, just like anything else that you're new at, it's just going to take time. But I think especially when you're a person, we're very similar in this way. I think we're like, you just want to be good at it. You just want to be good at it right away. It's just not possible, especially not with kids, because you can think that you've done everything correctly, but your kid in particular might be like, nah,
Yep. Or they come home with all these germs from daycare and then get everybody sick, and you know,
dang it.
yeah, it's all good. It is what it is. Yeah, I mean, it's been so fun having a kid just like learning, the nuances of, oh, I got to switch this up and being flexible. It's fun, but
Yeah.
we touched on a little bit your soft skills as a coach. I
Yeah.
That's the first thing that hit me when I started working with you, because a lot of people, have a lot of this knowledge, and the knowledge is important, and you certainly have all the knowledge, but application is what matters, and how you communicate with athletes is what matters, because it doesn't matter how much you know if you can't, communicate to somebody in a way that resonates with them. It's not going to make any change. So we talked a little bit about, you think that comes from working with Alex and then a lot of your background.
Yeah. I would say, just I really like people and I really like talking to people and hearing what they're saying and trying to get to the bottom of what they're trying to express. And I think especially in nutrition and in training, people say a lot of what they think they should say. At least I experienced that a lot when I was nutrition coaching, primarily Gen Pop. You hear a lot of people telling you what they think that you want to hear, and they're not even doing it on purpose. They're not doing it. It's just they're saying things that they've heard before because they think it applies. So I've always found it super fun to kind of try to push past that and pull that out of people. And I will say, before nutrition coaching, I was a bartender, I was a waitress, I was a barista. Like my jobs have always been peopling and creating relationships and things like that. So for me, nutrition coaching was just another way to do that. And I think you definitely have to enjoy it. Like you really have to enjoy the process because it can be long and arduous and emotional at times. But I think, like you said, you can have all the knowledge in the world, but if you're asking the wrong questions or your client is asking you a question because they think that they should, but it's not the right question, you guys are never going to settle on the right answer. And you're never going to find the right solution for them because both of you are saying what you think you should say instead of finding what the real issue is. I don't know how many times I've just straight up asked people, do you enjoy what you're eating? And they'll just flat out be like, no. And I'm like, okay, well, actually, let's work on that. I don't care about the numbers. I don't care. I want to know what you want to eat because we need to figure out what that is. Sometimes, like, they'll fight me on it. And they're like, no, like, I just want to lose weight fast. And I'm like, okay, cool. But then you're going to go back to eating the way that you like eating and you're not going to know what that looks like. So it can be almost like a fist fight sometimes, but I think it's the ability to either, yeah, there's so many different methods too. You can motivationally interview, you can try cognitive behavioral therapy things, ACT, DBT. There's like so many different coaching tools out there right now. And it's incredible how much variety there is and how many really cool practices there are. I will say one of the easiest things is just asking your clients to journal because they'll talk themselves through it 90% of the time. If you just let them journal and write, they'll do a lot of the self-searching for you. You actually don't have to do that much. And like you said, there is a fine line where it becomes therapy. So you never, when you're a nutrition coach, you're never diagnosing, you're just asking. You're just asking. Like my job is to open the door or shove my foot in the door and say, don't you close this. And just be like, hey, it really seems like you're having a really hard time handling stress from work. Do you have any other outlets? Do you have any other things in your life that bring you joy? Or is it just food? Is it just that drink at the end of the day? And if they say no, then you have the opportunity to be like, hey, why don't we start looking at options for you, whether it's via maybe just starting with an app, or if they're not getting therapy, looking for a therapist or bringing it up to their therapist. And people don't even think to bring things up to their existing therapist, which is just, they just think that everyone struggles with it too. And that it's normal. And that, I don't know, it's just, I'm sure you've experienced this a lot too. Like you'll ask a person, when are you hungry? Or like, what kind of foods do you like to eat? Or when you're hungry, what makes you feel the best? So many people don't actually know the answer. They can't tell you because they're so distracted all the time. And that's always been like my favorite thing to do with people is be like, tell me about what you love about food. Like, we're not going to talk about what's low carb, what's low, I want to hear what you love. And we need to talk me through everything about it. And then let's find options for you that fit those needs that also fit your goals. Like, if you really like the taste of pizza, let's just give you some freaking red sauce and little peppers and some Italian seasoning, and let's put it on everything. Let's put it on your chicken. Like, like what? So that to me is like the fun part. So I I don't even know if I would call it. I almost sometimes feel like calling it a soft skill is like overblowing the how I think about it, which is really just, it's really fun for me to ask those questions. Tell me more. What do you mean by that? What's that? But you definitely get better at asking the right questions the more people you work with. And because I worked for such a large nutrition company and a lot of our packages were 12 weeks, I've probably worked with over 1,000 people. That number is actually probably low. And then because I was their operations manager and I was their main customer service person, I, at any time we had 5,000 clients that were active and we had over 20,000 clients when I left that operations manager role, like historically. So I've met, talked to, helped with coach swaps, helped with signing up, overcoming, not even like resistance to signing up, but just getting to the bottom of what would make our coaching service good for them to like thousands and thousands of people. And that's why sometimes the biggest thing I can tell new coaches is just go start talking to people. Because that experience, I think, is actually where most of that comes from, is just how many conversations I've had. Like, so many.
That's a lot of people.
And being exposed to the similarities. You've worked with 1,000 people, different genders, different ages, different life experiences, drastically different life experiences. And you find the commonalities between all these people. And you learn that things aren't as important as you thought they were on the numbers and food side. And things that you didn't consider are actually far more important. Like, is your client having a good time? And, knowing how to keep your client tied to the correct focus is sometimes how you develop that relationship and how you get them to the goal, but then keep them there.
Yeah. I you've worked with a lot more people than I have, especially for nutrition. But one of the interesting things that I see in a lot of people is they think it's always a discipline issue
Mhm.
because again, they don't really know a ton about nutrition. So they're like, man, I just overeat at night and I'm just
My
not
willpower
disciplined enough.
sucks. Yeah.
Yeah. When really they ate 500 calories between breakfast and lunch. And
Mhm.
it's really interesting to me to work with people and like kind of shed light on that stuff because they're like, I had no idea. Like that makes so much sense. I just didn't
Mhm.
know.
Yeah. It's it's really cool. Like you've nailed it. That's something I see so often where I'm like, okay, this behavior is happening, this action is happening. What if, what if we gave you the benefit of the doubt and we assumed that this was actually your body protecting you or doing something on purpose? Even if the circumstances suck, even if the action sucks, like what is this fixing? What is this solving? Same thing with emotional eating, being able to reframe it. They're like, I had a really stressful day at work. I came home and I just fell into chocolate. And I'm like, but did it make you feel better? Yes. Okay, then it worked. Then it worked. It's not the best thing to do. No. Is it going to get you to all of your goals? No. But in the short term, your goal was don't feel stressed the hell out from my job. I need an emotional, physical reset. Okay, chocolate works. We can't take that away from the chocolate. We can't pretend it's not working and then try to make you go cold turkey and take away your coping mechanism and then expect you to be able to continue to cope. Or like you said, they're just not eating enough during the day and they're overeating at night. Well, actually, then your body's doing you a favor. It's just an uncontrolled, very sort of like animalistic favor, and it's being directed at a cheesesteak. So, like, let's move some things around, but let's give you more respect and let's give you the benefit of the doubt here and acknowledge that even if the behaviors aren't your favorite, even if they're not ideal, you've fallen into this pattern of habits because it solves something. It's working for some reason, even even if it sucks. We have to find the reasons why it's working. Otherwise, we're never going to understand how to build a new system for you. Um, and I think oftentimes for people who have stuck in a very self-defeating toilet bowl mindset of I have no discipline, I have no willpower, I'm the reason I fail, to actually put them back in the driver's seat and be like, actually, no, every single day you're making a choice. And the choice is helping you, but it's got more negatives associated with it than positives. So how do we make a different choice? And then they're like, oh, okay, well, now I know what I'm fixing. And then they're in the driver's seat again. Because dude, it's impossible to pull more discipline out of your butt. You can't. And I think the hard part is that you've got all these fit pros and all these people who are obsessed with fitness, myself included, where my entire life revolves around fitness and my entire life is centered on it. I don't have children yet. I don't have a partner that's not into fitness. My partner is equally into fitness, much more into fitness. Like there are people out there who have other stuff. Their life is not consumed by their physical prowess or performance. And finding a way to make their health matter within the context of their existing value system and their existing goals for themselves, which only one of which may be weight loss or fitness. Like it could be such a small piece of their overall puzzle, but because we put so much moral value on your ability to lose weight or, accomplish something physically, I think a lot of people get very defeated when they're not able to like Goggins it or be like their favorite fitness professional. But it's like, no, you don't understand. Like we're obsessive. You don't have to be, you probably won't have all the things that we have, but do you want to do all the things that we're doing? Probably not.
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah, probably not. It's probably not their jam, but there's a way to have a part of it. There's a way to so, yeah, I think it's also, at least for me, recognizing the privilege I have and, in saying, "Oh, I brought myself uh, out of illness or whatever." My flare last year was because I got part-time. It was actually close to full-time. I got a coaching job in person, and it wrecked me. I haven't worked an in-person job in 6 years. I didn't realize how much working at home and working from home helped me manage my symptoms, and what a rude awakening that was, and, like, all of my people that have my disease that are working in person, strenuous, on their feet jobs, they're gonna have a lot harder time accomplishing what I've accomplished because I couldn't get a single workout done. And it was really centering where I was like, okay, wow, I was taking for granted my working from home and how much that impacted my ability to execute extreme fitness. I was still able to keep myself relatively healthy, but anything extreme went out the window. Like completely. I was on like maintain mode. And it was a really much needed reminder that like what what we might consider simple or easy might just be because we have changed our lives so much to accommodate our goals, accommodate our drives, that we don't recognize how much easier we've made things for ourselves. And giving other people the benefit of the doubt is can be really, really huge when you're trying to create trust and collaboration with a person. When you're like, hey, your job is really hard, really making things really hard. And I'm going to acknowledge and validate you for that. Some people just need to hear that because no one ever says it.
Yeah, I think another thing you do insanely well, which I read your nutrition guide you sent over to, which I loved. At the end of it, you really do a good job of seeing training in the context of a bigger life. And, this isn't everything. It can empower you and be an awesome addition to your life, but it's not everything. And you don't need to be obsessive. I like that nutrition guide because I screenshotted and like shared that on my story, I think like 3 times because it was just awesome. It really resonated with me.
Thank you. It's true though. I worked with so many people where it's unfortunately, and I say worked with is like worked alongside a lot of nutrition professionals allow nutrition to rule their life. And I won't say that it is an eating disorder, but I will say that it becomes disordered because it becomes their method of control and their method of feeling in control of their lives and their method of proving to themselves that they are in control of themselves. And I've seen it stress out and harm a lot of my coworkers and friends. I still see it. I still see some people who I just want to push their asses into therapy so bad. And it can be somewhat horrifying and it can really color your enjoyment of being in that world. Again, that's why I was really eager to get out of the weight loss space. It was also just I didn't like working alongside some of the people I was working with. Wonderful people, way too obsessed with leanness, way too obsessed with their abs, way too obsessed with tracking, where I was just like, you're miserable. Like, you are so miserable. And they'd all be like, oh, how are you so happy and so focused? And I'd be like, bro, I haven't tracked in 3 years. I don't know. Like, I just have other stuff going on. Like, I have other things that are important to me and that I enjoy and that I allow to consume my life. And I think seeing that play out in clients, in getting clients that have been doing nutrition coaching for 2, 3 years with someone else. And again, it's not on purpose. It's not malicious. I think it's just we become so fixated on like fixing the problem and the problem being no control over their food and not hitting their numbers that we spin a lot of people around as an industry. And I've worked with a lot of those spun around people. And I I've cried at times on calls with them, just hearing about Cheryl. defeated they've become and like obsessive and terrified of failure. Can I eat fruit? I'm not supposed to have banana. Like damn near orthorexic. And I think for me, like that's really just impressed upon me the importance of context and making sure that nutrition is adding to your life and that what you're doing is meant to give you a bigger, better life where you are in the driver's seat and are able to enjoy more of what you want to do, not less. And like, I just want to like shake people. But I just think it's so important to repeat because it can so easily because it is very easy to control your food. It's very difficult, but it's very easy. And I think for a lot of people, it can become the like the one thing, it's well, I have 100% control over this right now. And I'm like, yeah, you do. What else though? What's
Yeah.
going on in your life that we can look at? Because this is going to get real fast. It's tough.
Yeah. You speak my language. I'm fired up listening to you. It's exciting. That's the stuff I love to talk about. You know,
Uh,
not restricting people's lives, but empowering and adding to people's lives.
Yeah. Like,
So,
how do you do that?
yeah, being mindful of your time because you do have a lot of other things, horses to take care of, probably. Are there any other things you wanted to talk about?
Mm, I was just curious how you're doing with your training because I know you've been switching things around just because your time. And I know you're pushing a little bit more toward like a recomp hypertrophy style. I know you've been making like a bunch of really awesome posts about it, but I just wanted to ask you like how that how that's just been going for you, like pushing more in that direction and if you're enjoying it, because I found it really fun. But I wouldn't you.
Yeah, it's fun. I've got a 10K. I'm planning to run it on Saturday just for fun. It's a fun Halloween 10K here, and people
Mhm.
dress up in crazy costumes, and it's fun to go see. So hopefully, I'm not sick by then. But yeah, it's been fun. I've enjoyed it. Lifting heavier. I've got a powerlifting meet I signed up for in December, so I've never done one of those. That'll be fun.
It's gonna be awesome. The hype is real. It's a very different environment than the endurance sports, but at the same time, the stoke is the same. So it's just like really funny to like bounce between the two sports and be like, oh, y'all are just loving being here. Like no matter where you are. That's awesome. I still haven't done a powerlifting meet. I was actually talking about signing up for one a couple days ago, but it's in January. And I was like, I don't know if that's enough time.
Yeah.
I don't know. I might be peeing on that platform if I
It's interesting to feel nervous because I've done endurance events my whole life. And so I kind of know how the meet goes whenever you go to a race, but I've
Yeah.
never been to a powerlifting meet. So being like, I have no idea what to expect. Like, I actually asked Fergus, I was like, hey, because he powerlifted in high school. I was
Yeah.
like, hey, is it like a 5K for a powerlifting meet where as long as you don't like mess with anybody else, it doesn't really matter if you're not that great for your body weight? Or should I like not sign up for this? Because, I run a lot. And so for my body weight, these people that only powerlift, it's probably going to be more average. So I was actually worried. I was like, are they going to be offended if I show up and like, you know, squat like not, 100 pounds less than the same guy in my body weight?
No, no.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hope he told you the same thing. No,
Yeah.
it's a really cool community. Do you have anyone there, like another coach that you know or someone who could help handle you?
No, not really. I've been kind of holed up since having Logan,
Yeah.
between work and coaching and, you know, everything else. But
I would see if there's anyone that you know that's gonna be there. Because I think the most stressful thing can be trying to get yourself focused, warmed up, and perform, and then adjusting your attempts on the fly. Because they're gonna ask you like, "What's the next weight you're gonna lift? What's your opener? What's your whatever?" So like a handler is a person that helps you figure that out and like helps you get your equipment on and helps you get to that place. So like even if you just have a buddy that can go with you, sometimes that can be huge. Um, that would be my even just to help you bounce ideas off of them, like how that looks. Should I go up 10 pounds? Should I go up 5 pounds? You've been lifting long enough that you'll be able to make that decision pretty well. But having someone there to help communicate that to the guy with the clipboard can be super helpful.
yeah, I'll definitely have to do that. it's been interesting. I was talking to another coach who used to powerlift, and I was like, I don't even feel that strong because for my body weight, these powerlifters. And he was like, yeah, but they can't run like at all. And it's like, oh yeah, I got to remind myself like
You're
that's
gonna
true.
be the runner. You're gonna be
Yeah,
that guy. Everyone's gonna be like, "What the hell? Like, you do what? You've done what?" And yeah, just it'll be fun. There's gonna be a lot of appreciation, I think, both ways of you being like, "Holy shit, you're so strong," and then being like, "But I can't walk upstairs." Like,
yeah.
it'll be I'm
Um,
excited for you.
it'll be fun. I've got a 60K in April that I missed 2 years in a row due to work travel. So I think I'm going to try to do that because it's 5 days after I get out of the Navy. So it'll be like
Mhm.
a cool, like new chapter.
Yeah,
Um,
a huge hug to yourself,
yeah,
and by hug, I
finally.
mean 40 miles of running.
Yeah,
It'll be
you get
fun.
it though.
Oh, yeah, completely. That's awesome. So your training is very much right now then, like, peaking strength and then straight into just straight up endurance.
Yeah, the endurance thing is interesting just with the time availability though, with,
Yeah.
the kid and everything. I actually
Yeah.
made a Google sheet yesterday with everything that I have in my life and the weekly time commitment that it requires. And it's
Mhm.
pushing kind of, you know, not a lot of hours left over. So I'm going to make some tweaks and figure it out.
Smart, that's totally smart. It's one of the first things I do. I'm like, "Okay, but what can you do?" Like, yeah, there's we wanna do XYZ, but what can you do? Let's start there. 'Cause as your son grows up too, things may change, and then once you're out of the Navy, I'm sure things will change even more, but you kinda have a lot on your plate, so
It's fun.
yeah. You're that person, you thrive on it, I know.
Yep. So if people want to see more about you or about CHP, where can they find you guys?
Yeah, so my personal Instagram is at running_peaches, and then, CHP Instagram is at complete human performance, and our website is completehumanperformance.com. As you so kindly pointed out, I run the Instagram. So if you DM us on there or you DM me in my personal, you're probably going to be chatting with me. If you email us at info@hybrid-academy.com, also me. So if you have any questions about anything and you reach out, probably going to be me. So I look forward to hearing from you if you want to work on anything hybrid or talk about food.
Awesome. I'll put all that in the show notes too for people so they can just click and find it. But
Thank you.
yeah, it was good to talk to you, Ariana. We haven't talked on a video call in a while, so it was good to catch
I
up.
know. Yeah, same. It was awesome. Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. You're way too good.
Totally. Have a good one.
Okay. Bye.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast. If you enjoyed it, it would be helpful if you could leave a rating or a review on whatever platform you're listening on, as that helps us reach more audiences and get more awesome guests on. If you're interested in anything we talked about today, you can check the show notes for all links. Otherwise, I will see you guys in the next podcast.